Have you noticed that as you get older, silence feels more comforting than company? There's a strange shift that happens with age, almost like a quiet curtain slowly lowering between you and the noise of the world. It's not sadness, it's not bitterness, it's just peace. Maybe once you loved being around people, gatherings, conversations, even the occasional chaos. But now, a quiet walk, a slow morning, or just sitting with your thoughts feels more rewarding than any party ever could. And you begin to wonder, is something wrong with me? But here's the truth most people never say aloud. This change is not only normal, it's deeply human. Today we're going to explore the quiet reasons why you've started avoiding people more as you age, and why, in many ways, it's one of the healthiest shifts your mind can make. Let me take you back for a moment. Do you remember when you used to try so hard to fit in, to be liked, to be invited, to be part of something bigger? You'd say yes to things even when you were tired. You'd listen to gossip, smile when you didn't want to, and shrink a little just to make space for someone else's comfort. But with time, the need to impress starts to fade, and something powerful replaces it: the desire for authenticity. You no longer crave attention, you crave peace. This is the first shift. Emotional energy becomes a currency you no longer spend carelessly. Where you once tolerated noisy conversations that went nowhere, you now treasure quiet moments that mean everything. You've realized your time is limited, and your emotional bandwidth even more so. And so you choose differently. And here's the beautiful part: you start choosing yourself. This isn't selfishness, it's wisdom. Because after a certain point in life, you stop needing to prove anything. Not to friends, not to family, not even to yourself. You begin to see things clearly: who uplifts you, who drains you, and who never really saw you at all. You become more selective, not out of pride, but out of preservation. And there's another change, one that's quieter, deeper. The world feels faster now, louder: social media, constant updates, endless small talk. All of it starts to feel exhausting, not energizing. You start pulling away not because you dislike people, but because the pace of it all no longer matches the rhythm of your soul. You long for slower things: a meaningful chat over coffee, the smell of a book, the sound of the wind through the trees. These small things now feel bigger than any grand event. And sometimes the reason you avoid people isn't even about others. It's about you. You've grown, you've outgrown, you've changed, but they haven't. You see life differently now, and trying to explain it to someone who hasn't walked your path just feels tiring. So you nod, you smile, but inside you know they don't get it, and maybe they won't. And that's okay too. You stop forcing connections. You stop shrinking to fit spaces you've outgrown. And you stop apologizing for needing space. Because space isn't loneliness anymore. It's clarity. It's freedom. So if you found yourself withdrawing a little more lately, if you say no more often, if you crave more silence than conversation, you're not becoming bitter, you're becoming real. And in this stillness, you're discovering something you always had but never noticed before. Your own company is enough. We'll continue this gentle reflection in the next part, where we'll uncover more of these quiet psychological reasons and the surprising benefits they bring. Somewhere along the way, you stop needing to fill every silence, because you've learned that silence doesn't always mean something is missing. Sometimes it means everything is finally in place. As you grow older, your tolerance for shallow interactions fades. You start to notice how many conversations are built on noise, not meaning. How much time is spent discussing things that don't matter. How few people really listen. And so you pull away, not because you're bitter, but because your soul is craving depth. You don't want more people. You want more presence. You want to be around those who make you feel seen, not just spoken to. You want conversations that leave you better, not drained. You want stillness that feels like a hug, not a void. And here's a truth very few will admit. As you age, you begin to grieve, not just people or moments you've lost, but versions of yourself you've outlived. That younger self who wanted to be everything to everyone. That version of you who laughed even when it hurt. You've outgrown that. And grieving that version is part of healing. It's part of becoming. Because now you want peace more than people-pleasing. And that shift is powerful. Another reason you may find yourself avoiding people is trust. Not in a dramatic or suspicious way, but in the gentle realization that not everyone deserves access to your softness. Over time, you learn that giving too much of yourself to the wrong people is the quickest way to feel empty. So now you protect your energy. You guard your joy. You become a little harder to reach, not because you're cold, but because you've learned to cherish what's warm. You become like a quiet house on a hill. The lights are still on inside, but not everyone gets to come in. And maybe that's the most beautiful kind of boundary. One more thing starts to change, the way you process time. You become more aware that every year feels faster. And so, wasting a day with people who don't align with your peace feels heavier than it used to. You stop going places where you're not celebrated. You stop entertaining conversations that go nowhere. You stop hoping people will change and start accepting what is. Not everyone can walk with you. Not everyone is meant to. And that's not loss. That's clarity. In this season of life, you begin to define connection differently. It's not about how often you speak or how many people you know. It's about how safe you feel when you're with someone. Safe to be quiet. Safe to be honest. Safe to be exactly who you are. No mask, no performance, no pretending. And if you can count even one person like that, you are already rich beyond measure. So if you've been pulling back from the crowds, if your phone stays quieter than it used to, if your calendar has more blank spaces and fewer obligations, know this. It doesn't mean your life is shrinking. It means it's becoming more intentional. And intention is where meaning lives. Let's continue in the final part, where we'll reflect on how this shift can actually make your life more full, not less. You might look around sometimes and wonder, have I isolated myself, or have I finally found peace? It's a valid question, and the answer isn't always clear from the outside, because peace and loneliness can look alike, but inside they feel worlds apart. Loneliness feels like a hollow ache, a reaching hand with nothing to hold. But peace feels like still water, like knowing you're enough, even in silence. And as you age, you begin to trust yourself more. Not just your decisions, but your rhythm. Your heart no longer races to keep up with what everyone else is doing. Instead, it slows down to feel what truly matters. You don't need 20 friends anymore. You need one person who really gets it. Maybe that's a spouse, a child, or even just yourself. That's the strange beauty of growing older. You start becoming the very friend you always needed. You start keeping promises to yourself. You protect your mornings. You say no without guilt. You let go of people who drain you, not because you hate them, but because you finally love yourself enough to stop bleeding for them. That's not avoidance. That's alignment. And if the world sees you as distant, so be it. They didn't walk the miles that taught you why quiet feels like safety, why small circles feel like home, why solitude doesn't scare you anymore. You've spent enough years searching for your place in the world. Now you're building it, slowly, intentionally, beautifully. So the next time someone says, "You've changed," just smile. Because yes, you have. You've become softer in some places, stronger in others, and wiser in the ways that matter. You've learned that connection doesn't always come from company. Sometimes it comes from clarity, from knowing who you are and what your peace costs, and that is nothing to apologize for. If this message spoke to something inside you, tell me in the comments. How have your relationships changed with time? What's one lesson you've learned about peace and people? If you found comfort in this video, please consider subscribing. There's more content like this, gentle, grounded, and made for hearts like yours. And remember, no matter your age, your story still matters. You are still growing, still worthy, still becoming. Here's to the quiet power of walking your path, even if fewer people walk it with you.